Hello, and welcome to MeriTalk State Tech Vision. We're coming to you at the close of NASCIO's 2025 mid-year conference here in downtown Philadelphia. I'm Nicole, Burdette principal with MeriTalk. We have a great panel for today's discussion. Representing the state of Texas, I'm pleased to be joined by NASCIO President, Executive Director, and State Chief Information Officer, Amanda Crawford. Amanda, welcome.
Thank you.
And for West Virginia, I'm happy to welcome Chief Information Officer, Heather Abbott.
Thank you.
And also, we're very happy to have Tom Nieto, who's President and Chief Operating Officer with PayIt, to share his private sector expertise. Welcome, Tom.
Thanks.
So today we'll explore some of the key themes discussed at this year's conference with a specific focus on cybersecurity and AI, and we'll look at how rapid innovation and new partnerships are shaping the future of public service. So let's dive in. Initial question for each of you. As you look forward into the year, what are some of the factors that are shaping your decisions around your priorities, around your IT portfolio investments and those of your customers, and your strategic partnerships? Amanda, maybe we can start this one with you.
Sure. So as we're looking at 2025, and right now in Texas, we're still in our biennial legislative session. So some of the priorities, the focus, the funding decisions are still being made right now as we're sitting here. But for us, our key priorities are going to be what we've always done. I mean, we're focusing on our mission, and at our agency, at the Texas Department of Information Resources, our goal is to transform how Texas government serves Texans. And we believe that technology can really be a force multiplier to totally reimagine how government can truly serve its people. And so we're going to continue focusing, obviously, on cybersecurity, on new ways to drive innovation, but not just for the sake of innovation, but for the sake of actually producing value for Texans and making things more efficient, streamlining government, and being able to meet the demands of the growing population that we have in Texas. I think we're at about 31 million people now in our state, and we have to be able to grow to be able to serve those Texans.
Absolutely. Heather.
Hi, it's easy to say ditto to what she was saying, but in West Virginia, we just had a gubernatorial election, and so with that came mostly new cabinet secretaries and new ideas and agendas. So we have to start working with those new cabinet secretaries. Most of them have gotten comfortable in their seats a little bit now, and we have to find out what their priorities are. Our legislative session just wrapped up about a week and a half ago, and there's definitely some initiatives from that we're going to be focusing on and trying to get through that I'll actually talk a little bit more about later on in this interview. But yeah, just really trying to make sure that we can do the most with what we have and find innovative ways to serve our citizens.
Fantastic. And Tom, how about from your perspective and working with your customers in states across the country?
Yeah, I think most of our state partners are really focused on delivering better outcomes. And I think, as Amanda put it, less innovation for innovation's sake, but really focused on how do we deliver a better service. And I would say that there's a big efficiency theme out there right now. And I think a lot of, people, especially with changing budgets, different priorities, they're really trying to understand how do we make sure we're delivering the best service to our constituents, but doing it as efficiently as possible.
Absolutely. So Amanda, you're currently serving as NASCIO's.
I am.
Yeah. Fantastic. What stands out to you about this year's list of CIO priorities?
So this year's top 10 is interesting, and we'll have a new top 10 certainly that'll come out later in the year. But when we're looking at this, I think we had a fascinating result is that we had a tie for number one, just barely. Cybersecurity has been number one for a while on that top 10, and I've long joked that I think we could just say that that's table stakes. And because I want to know now what's 11, because if we don't have cybersecurity as our number one priority, you are out of a job. So that always should be on the top of the list. But we had a tie with AI and cybersecurity. And if you look at it, as I recall, the AI was on the list last year, I believe, but it was far down. And so to see that how quickly it rose to the top of the charts is, I think, really speaks to the transformational nature of this generation of AI. We know that AI has been around for a while and was certainly with RPA and machine learning. But now this generative AI, and then even what's coming out with, agentic AI and all these other things, it's showing that the states are really looking at that and seeing how we can leverage it to achieve our missions. But to me, those, I look at this, and when you look at sort of the broader, like whether it's the industry agenda, certainly things that are coming from not just the federal government with the new administration, but also what you're seeing in a lot of the states. And as Tom mentioned, sort of this focus on efficiencies and driving that. I'd like to think, I certainly think good about it for my agency, but I think we could say it for technology organizations across the country. We were Doge before Doge was cool.
I love that.
Because we were purpose built to do that, to drive efficiencies, again, to use technology. Like I mentioned at the beginning, is that force multiplier for things. When we know that we have constricting budgets, we have workforce challenges, and we're using that technology to really power the backbone of government. And, whether it's also from leveraging the buying power of the state to be able to drive a good bargain on our contracts and be more better stewards of tax dollars. So I don't really see them as a divergence there in the agenda.
Makes sense. Well, you mentioned a moment ago, obviously, cybersecurity is still on the list of priorities, as it will always be. But I'd like to ask each of you, what are the biggest cyber challenges that you're tackling right now? How are states working to optimize limited cybersecurity resources? Can you speak to some of the partnerships, the information sharing, and even some of the whole of state strategies that are helping to close the gap? Heather, maybe you can start.
Sure, yeah. This one's exciting for us right now and scary, as it always is. But one of the things that we're doing, we're working with some vendors, as well as hopefully Marshall University and WVU in our state, to have a student-run SOC in those locations that our cyber team gets to work with those students to help train them, make sure they understand real-world uses as opposed to just what they learn in the classroom. And also then that gives us the assistance and labor and outside experiences to pull from. That's not going to happen immediately. We're working out the details and how that would work, but I am super excited about the opportunity to get to work with those students and increase their knowledge and then possibly get some of them to come to work for the state. One of our biggest challenges in cybersecurity is the fact that we can't pay what other agencies or what other contractors, vendors, outside world can pay these staff. And once they get really good at what they do, they double, triple their salary and get to work from home. And it's hard to compete with that. So we've really got to find ways like this to make it better for state government to compete in that realm and have that staff that's really good, along with having vendors that are partners, not just people that we sign a contract with, but actual partners with us that will come in and help protect our citizen data and keep our systems secure and make sure that everyone in our state feels comfortable that we're doing everything that we can to protect their information.
Absolutely. Amanda, how about in Texas?
Well, a similar theme because, like that West Virginia, and we always have, big challenges on cybersecurity and those workforce challenges. So back in our 2021, so a couple legislative sessions ago for us, our legislature passed legislation that allowed us to do a pilot program of a regional security operations center, or RSOCs, and in partnership with the public universities in our state. So our first RSOC was at Angelo State University out in West Texas. And similarly to what they're doing in West Virginia, one of the requirements is that students have to work in that regional security operations center. But the RSOCs are providing free cybersecurity resources for the local governments in their area. So this is network monitoring and response tools, outreach, education, and incident response should there be an incident. That first pilot was a success. And we then rolled it out to 2 additional universities. So we have one at the University of Texas at Austin, one at UT Rio Grande Valley. And now we've requested funding for 4 more. So the state is funding them in partnerships with universities. And it's really great to be able to leverage what the universities can bring. For example, they have different funding models. They can accept donations They already have the real estate and the building infrastructure and all of those things. And more importantly, it isn't state government. It isn't Austin telling the local governments what to do. These are the schools and the communities where people live and their trusted resources to be out there. So it's been a really fantastic partnership. And especially when we're talking about threats, what we're really seeing is, certainly the state is under a significant threat, but it's the local governments and it's critical infrastructure. We're seeing those attacks on critical infrastructure. We know there's a highly publicized attacks on some of the water districts in Texas last year, and it's a significant need. So having these RSOCs eventually across the entire state to help those communities will be tremendous.
Fantastic. And Tom?
Yeah, it's interesting because, to Amanda's point, I feel like across all of our state partners, we're seeing the speed and complexity of the attack vectors increasing pretty exponentially. Yeah. And then when you marry that with the amount of data that is coming in and that has to be protected, those two are coming to a little bit of a loggerheads. And so I think what we try to work with our partners is really being thoughtful about how do you think about data and what that looks like? Because ultimately that feels like the place that if you can secure that, put a perimeter around it, that really becomes I'll call it the nest egg. And so for us, as we think about it, it's how do we make sure we're partnering with them to separate where possible so that you're not co-hosting, you're not putting all that in one place. But also thinking about what is the mission critical data and potentially segmenting that from more public data. I think one of the nice things about, working in the public sector is a lot of data is publicly available. And so segmenting things that can be accessible and that should be out there from the things that really need to be protected, I think is probably one of the hardest things to do, especially in this environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we'll touch a little bit more on data in a few moments. That's a great point. So segueing into that, a lot has changed on the AI front in the last year, in the last month. As you referenced it, it's risen to be tied for first place in the list of CIO priorities from a state perspective. Talk to us a little bit about what has changed in your AI strategies this year and how you're navigating the pressure to innovate quickly, but also responsibly.
Okay, sure. So we've done a number of different things. Like a lot of states, we created by legislative code an AI task force, and we are going to continue that in having the meetings with the task force, having our preliminary report that we put out. There was a realization that stopping that task force this summer probably wasn't a good idea. So once we have that final report, it's definitely not going to be our final meeting. We're going to keep going because we know things are just going to keep increasing. More ideas, more security needs are going to be coming out. So we're going to continue with that task force as well. And that covers not just my office, but all of state government and the industry around us. So we've got a lot of different people on that task force. What we're doing in-house, there's some crazy things that we've had to just stop immediately. Transcription services. People are just having a fit with transcription services, and rightfully so, because in state government, unlike outside companies, we deal with FOIAs and, legislative, or not legislative, sorry, but legal constraints and things that we have to be aware of all the time. And when you have a transcription of a meeting that no one but a couple of people are aware that's happening, and then that gets sent out to everybody, well, all of a sudden, all of that information is FOIAble. And the scary part of that is if I'm sitting in a meeting and I go, oh, that's great. Well, that inflection doesn't get put on paper. And so if it's FOIA'd, it looks like I was really in support of whatever it was we were talking about. And so we have to really be careful of those things that just aren't something that people think about when they think AI.
You had somebody, let's say, like the small talk that you have, and say, "Oh, I have a cough," or "Oh, so and so, how are you doing? How's your dad doing?" or whatever else. And all of a sudden, you have HIPAA information that's been recorded.
Yes,
and now you have to go and look through all that, and it just creates a whole new regulatory nightmare.
And how many times have you been in a meeting where somebody went, "Oh, don't put that in the notes"? Yes. Well, too late. It's there. It's too bad. So there's all those considerations that we have to think about. to make sure that we're protecting the people that are using those. So there's some AIs that the transcription services that will fly through your network like a virus if you don't block them. And it's for companies we don't have contracts with, and we can't legally say, no, you can't send that information to a foreign country or so we're really watching that. But we're also working with our Attorney General's office and the different legal teams and the different departments on what are your needs, what are the things that you're seeing. So there's a lot that we're having to really take into consideration. So we're trying the crawl approach, but we've got to start getting faster because it's just growing.
Absolutely. How about Tom, from your perspective?
I think from our perspective, we're seeing it at kind of 3 different levels. So there's the constituent expectations, and they see the consumer side of it. So their expectations are rising rapidly. From a government employee perspective, a lot of them are seeing how they can get the benefits of some of this. And so how do you put it in place so it's done in a thoughtful way, but actually has a ton of impact, right? Especially, I think a place where we're seeing a lot of impact is on a co-pilot approach. So it's not let's let the AI run free, but it's how does it augment what's being done so there's still some human oversight. And then for us personally, a lot of it is how do we use it to accelerate our roadmap so that we can have a bigger impact and make sure that we're putting, I think a lot of conversations I end up having in talks like this is around how do we ingest it on our side so that you all don't have to do it, so that you can focus on the outcomes and let us worry about some of the back end stuff while still understanding what's behind the scenes and making sure you have some visibility and control there, but not having to do all the implementation, because we know that getting the right people and technology in place can sometimes be not always the quickest in state government. So how do we help you accelerate doing that in a meaningful and thoughtful way?
Yeah, and those guardrails that you kind of mentioned, those are important, and that's what we're looking at to try to do. And training for systems like yours, making the end user really understand what it is they're doing and what it means.
Right.
That's something that we're trying to figure out how to get that in there and make sure our staff, as well as the citizens, understand what they're using.
Well, and I thought your term partnership, I think we think about that a lot. And, I think especially in this space is becoming so important because, and to your earlier point, like the legislatures are trying to react, I would say at this point. And so you are trying to deal with, them trying to come up to speed and being reactive while at the same time trying to serve your constituents as fast as possible. So those two competing forces, we try to be partners in that and be reactive with you as you guys approach it.
But I think education is so much of, at least it's a priority for us right now, particularly in this space. I think we all know that the technology has tremendous promise. I mean, without a doubt, but it's not without its peril. And we have to figure out how to balance those two things. So one of the things that we've done is we've created an AI user group, and it's both state employees and local government employees can join as well. We have, just in the little over a year that we've done this, more than 700 people have signed up, which again speaks to the needs. So there's obviously online discussions. We can't get together in a room, but folks are sharing best practices, templates, all those sorts of things, policies. I mean, that's a huge part, is just what's your policy and can we all share and build on that. We're also working on an AI literacy program that we're going to have that we will roll out. To build this AI literacy program that's both for the practitioners, for the technologists, but also for the business leaders and the layperson who just really need to understand a little bit about AI, what it is, how it can be safely deployed, and again, some of the pitfalls and the things that you have to be concerned about when you roll this. The other thing that we've done, again, around the education piece, but also creating a safe space for our state customer agencies to explore the technology, is we've taken what was our AI Center of Excellence that we've had since 2019 and evolved it into the Technology Innovation and Education Center, or TEAC, as we like acronyms. And within that program, we have an innovation lab. So it's a secure lab space that's on our Capitol complex, and our customer agencies can come in and we bring and partner with industry. And so we have different vendor partners come in, demonstrate their technologies, but the agencies actually get to use them. And we have computers, workstations there so they can try it out, take it for a test drive, kick the tires, do all those fun things. and see if this is something that would work for them. And then that way, they've already made that connection with those partners. We have those partners on contract. And then if these agencies think they have a use case, they can rapidly deploy because they've already tried it out and they know this is something that might work for them.
Yeah, that hands-on capability it can make such a huge difference.
It really has. It's really to be able to actually try something out. It really helps to alleviate the fear. It's also a more efficient way and making sure that you're not going to partner with somebody and spend money on something if it's really not going to be a tool that's going to work for you. And so we've got probably close to 50-ish projects right now that people have been working on and partnered with around 30 different companies to come in.
It's great. So Tom, tell us about some of the real world examples of how AI is reshaping public service.
Yeah, I think, I think as has been articulated here, a lot of it's around that constituent-centric experience. And so really thinking about how does it show up for the service I'm trying to deliver. And so if you think about knowing your customer. So, in the past, a lot of times there was silos of information, and how do you start to pull that together so that if I show up and I'm trying to complete a transaction, if I'm trying to get a service delivered to me, how do I not have to go start from square one every single time? I think it's probably one of the biggest ones. So you're taking friction out of that process. I see the other one is on the back office side of, instead of me having to go and find that information, because I would say generally the amount of information that most of our state partners hold has expanded so exponentially that they can't even harness it in a meaningful way a lot of times. And so they don't always have someone on staff who is a data scientist who can help with all the analytics. And so how do you help bring all that data to bear? Because you have the right data to be able to make really good decisions, but how do you actually bring it to bear so that you can actually use it in a meaningful way? Is probably one of the ways that I've seen it move the fastest, because I think generally most of our partners try to be very data centric, but I think they had a challenge because of the size of the data and not having all the staff to be able to really harness it.
So, Tom, to your point, that data and successful AI go very tightly hand in hand. How is your data strategy evolving to ensure that you have enough of the right data and are able to use it to fuel AI and use it securely and responsibly? I would love to hear from each of you on that, but if you'd like to start, would be great.
I think a lot of it does come back to partnership and thinking about, I would say most of our state partners have their own data strategy. And so how do you marry that up with the data that needs to be used in order to make better decisions from the different streams? Because generally you're pairing multiple different partnerships together to come up with a better answer. And so I think, how do you make sure that all those partners are working together and protecting the data in a more cohesive way? I would say in the past, you would have one partner who might be really in charge of that and not all the other ones were as thoughtful. And I think now you're seeing everybody be very thoughtful about how and where data gets stored, what the access looks like. I think a lot of people started really thinking about data 5-10 years ago and what that strategy looks like. And I think those who took the right steps and put those pieces in place are now really benefiting from it.
Absolutely. Because that's one of the things that, we all know data is foundational for AI. And certainly in the public sector, we've been trying to drive on those data principles for a while. But, data governance isn't really sexy. It doesn't get a lot of attention. It doesn't always get a lot of funding. And so while we've been pushing on it, it's just when you have limited resources, it's not something that's always gotten a lot of focus and attention. But then people, again, are seeing the promise of AI, but they're having to, there's a check there because folks are saying, well, we'd love to deploy that. However, the data that would underlie that is it's not quality data, and we're going to have to clean that up. And I know that AI can be used to help clean up your data, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. And so we have a law from a few years ago that requires every agency over 150 people to have a designated data management officer. And those data management officers then serve on a body called the Data Management Advisory Committee, or the DMAC. The DMAC gets together and they talk about the challenges they have. And then the DMAC is actually charged with reporting to our agency's governing board with legislative recommendations that are then handed over to our legislature on. So you're hearing from the data management officers to help shape the policy of what could be done to improve data quality in our state. And one of the ideas that this group had was for us to develop this data literacy program. So just like I was talking about AI literacy, we've done data literacy first. They're available for free. on our YouTube channel for DIR. So one can watch them if you guys just really dying to know about this. But it's lots of different modules, again, from both the person and the practitioner. And it's one of our most popular video series on our YouTube channel.
I love that you're making it publicly available for,
Absolutely.
Not just agencies within your state, but across the country.
Anyone who wants to. And we also allow agencies to import it into their learning management system, so they can also keep track of it for employee certifications. And, it's homegrown as well. In fact, one of our chief data officers in our agency, she records it in her bedroom closet. But it's great. I mean, it's a homegrown product that's really been successful.
That's awesome.
Well, I, for one, am definitely going to check that out because that's amazing. I have heard so many times during this conference, people make some comment to the effect of, we are now having to face our sins from the past.
Right.
And I can tell you, as someone who was an application developer, slash DBA slash, code fixer, whatever I needed to be, in my previous life, we were horrible at documentation. The databases early on were not designed well. And we're now having to fix the fact that there are still some systems out there that were developed 20 years ago, and they've just been added on to, but they've never really been fixed. And so it is a lot of work to try to determine what needs to be done, how you protect that data, how you make sure that when the public does a search, when we get to the point that we're using AI for public information, that we're not giving someone else's medical records or child support information or whatever it is, because that could be disastrous. So we have to make sure that what we are doing is correct, and that data, to Amanda's point, is absolutely critical in using this. So we have to make sure it's right and that it's good and trusted. And that's a lot of work.
Both of your states have made great strides in digital service delivery. Tell us a little bit about what's driven your efforts and also about some of the outcomes. What are some of the benefits that you're seeing in terms of citizen satisfaction, in terms of cost savings, and in terms of efficiency?
So one thing that kind of happened that was neat was during COVID, nobody wanted to go into buildings. We kind of shut down offices. And the DMV really reacted quickly. They revamped the way they did their, they started creating a portal where you had to schedule an appointment instead of you just going in hoping that the lobby isn't crazy packed and still sitting there for a couple hours. Now, the original outcry was, I don't want to have to create an appointment. This is awful. But you know what? It worked. It was just so amazing because then all of a sudden people was like, I was in and out in 20 minutes. Like, this is just incredible. So these kind of services, sometimes the unexpected ones are the ones that really impact your citizens the most. We've really gone just full steam ahead with every license, from your DMVs to your hunting and fishing, doing things with Workforce West Virginia. There are just so many things that we have put online where you can get your license, you can print it off, you don't have to go into an office. And the citizens of our state have just really fully embraced it. And they love not having to leave their house to be able to go get a license for something. In West Virginia, the hunting and fishing licenses are big, so people really like being able to print that off and then hit the lake.
Yeah.
So a lot of it just has been citizen desire and things that they've asked for. And each department listens and they do, what they want. And then, we come in and help them. But just having that ability to create the websites using contracts and partners to create that and have that readily available has just been fantastic.
It's a great example.
When you talk about that with the licensing, I mean, I think about it as a consumer myself, because inevitably I remember that it's time to renew my license when I'm on the boat and going to fish. So And I can do that. I can pull it up. I can do it online, and then I have it. And one of the things that our Parks and Wildlife Department has done as well is you can actually digitally tag whether it's a deer, your turkey, or your fish. So when you have fish over a certain size, then you have, so many tags for that. I never had to use that one because I haven't got one that big yet, but I'm hoping this might be the year that I can get that really big redfish. But it's so convenient, and it just makes sense. So like West Virginia, we've really been driving on taking it out of line and moving it online. It's been about 3 years now since we took a lot of the services that were on texas.gov and put it into our mobile app, which we call Texas by Texas, or TXT. And in that 3 years, we have about 9 million Texans who have created accounts on TXT. And it's really taken off. It's available either as a native mobile app, or you can download it through either the Apple or Google stores. But when you talk about satisfaction, our ratings, I think it's like a 4.9 basically in both. And what's really cool about that is you're getting real-time feedback from, a 4.9 out of 5 is not bad. And you're getting great feedback from folks that are pulling out other agencies that aren't integrated into the app and saying, hey, when are you next? Because we love this and this is fantastic. Things like, this is how government should work. So, because it's not personal, but they don't want to deal with us. They don't want to come in. And I'm in government, and I don't want to go into a government office and deal with us. I really don't. And so this is the way it really should be. Now, we also still have to make sure that we know that there may still be broadband challenges and connectivity challenges. And there's also a social aspect for certain people, that there is part of a social aspect of coming into town and going in to get your license. And you can still do that too. But we want to make sure that you can renew online quickly, whether it's, an occupational license, hunting and fishing, or, car or boat registration, and get your driver's license and go.
Yeah, we just had legislation passed that is for us to take not every single thing in the executive branch, like the DMV, they're kind of staying separate. But a lot of these different licenses, we're going to create one portal so that citizens, no matter what they want, there's one place for them to go, that one-stop shop. And I know, a number of other states have already done something similar, but we are just starting to work on what that looks like and how we're going to get that up and running. Is there going to be a user fee? That's kind of the idea. But have that to be that easy place so that whether you want the hunting and fishing license or that you need something from Health and Human Services or whatever it is, that you can go to that one spot and always find what you're looking for. So we're really excited about that. It's going to be a lot of work, but we're really happy about being able to do that for our citizens.
Yeah, it'll pay off.
Yeah. So throughout our conversation, we've been talking about changes in how government operates and how IT supports the goals. And these were a few fantastic examples of real tangible outcomes. We know that the workforce aspect of all of this is extremely important. So we'd love to hear from each of you. What are some of the steps that you're taking in terms of upskilling and reskilling your workforce? Heather, do you want to start?
Oh, sure. Well, I mentioned the partnerships with Marshall and WVU. That one is going to be really great for our cyber group. But we're also looking into different internships. We do a thing where with certain colleges in the area, it's a learn and earn. So the college actually pays for part of their salary, and then we pay for the rest. So it makes it more efficient for us, and we get to train the staff, and hopefully they want to come work for us after that they've done the internships. So, and then our governor's office has the, West Virginia Governor's Internship Program, and we rely on that a lot as well. We get a lot of great applicants that come in from all over the state because we want to keep our kids in West Virginia instead of having them get educated and leave and go to Texas. But we're really trying to do that. And then with all the changes just in IT, we really try to make sure that we talk to our staff. What training do you feel you need? Is there something you're interested in? What can we do to help you do that? What's out there to really get you to the next level in your own skill set so that we have that available? So those are some of the things that we're looking into.
We try to take advantage of internships. We're fortunate that we have a lot of great universities just in Austin, but also throughout our state. And so we offer a robust number of paid internships for college students. And but they're in not just cybersecurity or IT, but we also have them in our procurement and contracting and in our accounting department, in HR, in legal, to bring them in and let them see what it's like working and doing public service. We really think that that is something that speaks to this generation a lot. And we've also then trying to meet that next generation of government workers where they are. We're putting a lot out on social media. We're doing video clips with our interns, sort of a day in the life, so they can see what it's like. And it's been really fun to see what the interns have had to say. And they're fantastic. I'm very excited to say that, I don't know, would you call it like when you foster an animal and it's like foster fail? I don't know if it's an internship fail. I don't know. Internship win. We hired 2 of our interns, which is fantastic. One into our project management office and another one in to our communications and outreach, which has been terrific. We have we also do volunteer internships for high school students. We're about to launch those live and put those out there and bring those kids in, and we got tremendous amount of response last year on those. And then another thing that we're working on, and this is again on sort of the new recruit, is we had legislation that passed last session that allows us to develop an apprenticeship program in partnership with junior colleges, which is fantastic because those junior colleges, the community colleges, will work with us to build the curriculum to create the jobs that we need. And so, but it's specifically for a state IT and state cybersecurity credential. And that's the whole focus of it. So we have our first apprentice that's in now. Some of the agencies are doing that as well. And we're hoping then, again, to be able to train them up and then have them either stay at our agency or go to other agencies. And then the other thing, talking about how we partner with the private sector is look for partnerships on training. So, particularly with the model that we have in Texas, but really it's across the country. I mean, we rely so much on the private sector to be able to accomplish our missions. But when we bringing new folks into our ecosystem, I mean, I just ask, like, what are you going to do to train my workforce? What are you going to do for reskilling? You want us to buy your product? Then you're going to need to teach our folks how to use that and how to make sure that we're current with the emerging technologies, and the market and that community has been really responsive to that.
Tom, that segues well.
That was a fantastic segue. Appreciate it. I think
You're welcome.
appreciate you teaming me up. I think for us, we take a similar approach, and I think a lot of our folks that we try to bring in are very mission driven, and so they feel a real responsibility to what we try to deliver. And so I think a lot of what we do when we're partnering with our state partners is to actually do that training and enablement. And it's not just from a helping to upskill, but also making sure that, I think a lot of times, our partners on the state side have been dealing with some of the applications you talked about, which are 20 years old. And sometimes they want to be on the more cutting edge side of it. So a lot of, I think we feel our responsibility is to help that migration happen. And so it's about how do you bring them along? How do you upskill them? And also, especially in this day and age, how do you make sure that they really understand the best practices? I think we're lucky enough to see it across multiple states. And so how do we bring a best practice from one state into another and say, hey, we just saw this work really well. Like, how have you thought about that? And I think that's really because state agencies tend to be less competitive than the private sector. They're able to share best practices. They're able to, really build a more cohesive community. It's NASIO. And so I think that bringing those across state lines is really something where we can help actually continue to move that faster versus having to reinvent the wheel every single time.
You're so right. And I mean, that's one of the wonderful things about NASIO is we freely borrow ideas from each other all the time. I mean, I have a notebook full of ideas that I get from Heather and my peers across. I mean, so many great things that are happening. But you're right. When folks come in to meet with us, private sector partners, and I ask them, well, what's West Virginia doing? What's Ohio got going on? Utah. I want to know what the other states are doing, and y'all bring those use cases for us, and it's fantastic.
Absolutely. So in addition to the workforce aspects, Tom, are there any other aspects of public-private partnerships that you feel are really important in terms of accelerating digital service delivery?
I think the big thing we're seeing out there is a mindset shift. I would say historically, a lot of times through our engagements, we would see someone saying, hey, here's how we do it now. We just want to do a little better off of that. And I think we're seeing, because of the speed of innovation, I think the leaders in the community are really starting to say, what worked for us 5 years ago probably won't work for us tomorrow. And so, and to Amanda's point, it's not innovation for innovation's sake, but understanding, trying to just automate what we currently do or trying to just digitize what we currently do is probably not the right answer.
Right.
Let's take a step back, think about what is the service we're trying to deliver, what's the outcome we're trying to drive towards, and let's go solve that problem versus just take the next incremental step, which, I think is very refreshing for us in the private sector, but is also, I think we're seeing, I would argue, some of the best innovation we've seen over the past decade in state technology, because we were seeing a mindset shift at both the leadership level, but that's really being waterfall down to the rest of the teams as well.
Yeah. No, and I would argue that the partnerships and the information sharing is a huge accelerator and a force multiplier, as you both just mentioned.
Right.
So, well, let's close out with the last question, Amanda and Heather. How are you preparing for the change that's ahead? What are you thinking about?
Well, I think part of it is really kind of pulling together all the things that we've talked about already. It's education, it's developing strong partnerships with the private sector, finding those right partners that are in it for the mission and that understand that what we do, and making sure that we have a workforce that's ready to meet those challenges. But I think that, again, going back to when you talk about what we said with and not just innovating for innovation's sake, it's not just legacy systems, but we have that legacy mindset that is out there. And so I think we're working really hard to change that and driving more on efficiency. I think that there's a lot of churn. There's, some negative, there's some positive about all, the different efficiency efforts that are going on. But at the end of the day, that is really what we're about, is driving efficiency, being good stewards of tax dollars, and being able to ultimately really deliver for our constituents and the people we serve. And so I think that the state CIO role is going to only continue to grow in importance. I think it's been growing for a while, that it's not just a back office technology function, but it is absolutely a key decision maker and a business partner in ultimately being able to serve the people.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've noticed over the years within the role of IT is, when I first started with state government many moons ago, IT was kind of the barrier in some ways of what the business needed. And there would be times that our departments and agencies would get frustrated because the IT staff would be like, we just can't do that. And now it's changed where the businesses can get what they want because we can do most anything that they need now. And so it's switched from the business systems being limited by what IT could do to where they're excited because now we can give them what they need, and our systems need to rely on what the business focus is.
Right.
And so making sure that the CIOs and the directors of the IT agencies are talking to the businesses, talking to the cabinet secretaries, the commissioners, to make sure that they get what they really need, and that we're partners with them as well as with the vendors and other agencies that we're working with. And really having a whole of state, as you hear all the time, goal of what we're doing going forward. So being mindful of that is going to be really critical in the IT agencies' roles and the CIO's roles going forward.
And that is a great way to close. Thank you very much. So thank you for such a great discussion. We really appreciate your insights and we appreciate your time. It's clear that the pace of change isn't slowing down, and neither are the opportunities to reimagine how government serves their people. So thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Tom, for your time. Thank you for your insights. And to you, our viewers, thank you for tuning in. Please check back for more state news and events at MeriTalkSLG.com. Have a great day.